Yeah, I forgot they added Javion Clowney, and I really do like that. I think it's their defense that gets it for me. Again, I agree. You're like Baker. Yeah, he's good, but it's that just overall the players they have is where it's at for me, and what they're doing works. And I think it's a tough team, right? They can run the ball, they can pass the ball. Like Baker's making those throws, so I'm excited to see what they do this year and what step they take and such.
Yeah.
I hope they improve because I think they will. I think they will be a top team in the AFC easily. And I think they do compare. I don't know if they face this Kansas City this year, but I would like that matchup
Yeah.
just
I
for the
just
offensive stuff that
yeah,
could happen.
like Baltimore and Cleveland, I have for sure going. I think that Buffalo is for sure going. I think New England is for sure going. And then,
Really? You think New
yeah,
England is for sure going?
yeah.
That's
I
surprising to me.
so they were 7-9 team when they weren't even really trying to win. Like again, like adding back all these players that they had, the massive free agency. Yeah, I think that New England is going to be really good. I don't think they're going to win the division. I think they're going to be in second place, and I mean potentially third place, but I think they're going to be competing for a wild card spot.
All right. Yeah, I think they'll compete for a wild card spot. I don't think they get in though, but
Yeah, Vegas
I
has them at 11 wins. Like they're loaded right now.
people love Belichick. No, they are loaded, and it wouldn't totally surprise me. And honestly, just I I'm kind of for the storyline. I think that is cool, and I would love them to make the playoffs. Just oh yeah, Belichick got his quarterback, and boom, back in the playoffs. Like he just one off year, right? Got Cam, didn't work. Yeah, you don't need no Brady. You don't need no Brady now. But I just I don't know. I think they're competing, but I'm excited to see Mac Jones long term. Then, that's what the question mark I have. I still think he's going to be a good quarterback behind Belichick too. But how fast will he get there? How fast will teams start to cue in on his tendencies and expose him, and he starts having those rookie mistakes that cost them games? Maybe what happens this season with there. So that's why I do agree. I hate it, but yeah, they probably will compete for a wild card spot late down the stretch in week 15, 16, 17. But ultimately, I don't think they get in. That's kind of what I think out of them
Yeah,
at the season start.
I think people tremendously over exaggerate how bad they were last year. Like they were in a game.
Well,
Buffalo,
if you compare it
at the last second, right? Like
yeah.
you win that, like and it was Cam, right? Who also was crap last year after he came back from a COVID, right? So like there's so many reasons why they weren't good last year, and they still won 7 games. Like also, Belichick eats young quarterbacks alive. And although, I mean, I'm not sure if you can still include Josh Allen in that role in his 4th year. I mean, between Tua and between Zach Wilson, I think they're going to go at worst 3-1, right? So I just think that their division lends them to get off to a great start there. We'll see. I think if they really did not have confidence that Mac Jones could be the guy, I think they would have kept Cam. I think that was the plan before. I think there were obviously reasons why they got rid of Cam, but I don't think that you cut him if you don't think that Mac Jones can actually get this job done. And I think it's one of the better offensive lines they've had. So like my biggest thing with that is adjusting. Like I have significantly more questions about Pittsburgh. I have more questions about the Chargers. I have more questions about the Raiders. I have more questions about the Broncos. I have more questions about those teams than I do about the Patriots. And when I look at the rest of the AFC, I guess I could include the Texans and the not the Texans, the Titans and the Steelers. Or the Titans and who else is it in the AFC South?
Houston, Indianapolis. What's that
Indy.
other team?
Yeah, Indy is the other one. I like New England more than I like Indy or Tennessee. Now, obviously, Indy or Tennessee, one of those teams going to win the division, and they're going to make it in. I'm not sold that the other team is going to make the playoffs as a wild card team that we've seen in past years, right? So that's all of those things said. That's really where yeah. I
You know what?
I like New England this year.
Interesting. Yeah, I think it's interesting to remember that like the AFC had multiple +10 win teams not make the playoffs last season. Uh, and that's with an expanded playoffs last year. So like the AFC is really good right now. There's a lot of good teams pushing those wins. I know Miami didn't make it from random stuff. So yeah, I think there are going to be a lot of teams that just barely miss it, and I could going back to New England. I can see Tennessee being that team that barely misses it, even though they have been winning the AFC South readily handily. I do like Tennessee more than Indy just because I have questions about Carson Wentz and what he would do. So until we see him on the field and what that offense is with him and what the defense can do, there's question marks there, but I'm more hopeful for them. I like when Indy's good, and it'd be just a cool story for Carson Wentz to be good again, right? Reunite with Frank Reich and then go on a tear.
Yeah. So, like, who would your 7 playoff teams be?
Kansas City, unfortunately. Cleveland. I'm gonna do Tennessee for the AFC South.
Sure.
AFC East, Buffalo. So those are the 4 winning the division.
Right.
I'm going to say Raiders, and I don't want to be a Raider fan, but like the defense is fixed. And the Raiders, the only problem was the defense. And that's my biggest thing. So like Raiders have an asterisk. As long as they don't just stop playing, their defense stops playing in the last 6 games, they make the playoffs the last 2 years. It's their defense that is the issue. And I think with Gus Bradley, especially with the people they've added on the back end, like there's no reason why they can't push for a playoff spot. And I think they could be one of those bubble teams that barely misses it. So if we're looking at, I think the Raiders, I even think the Chargers could be in that conversation, depending on division games. I think that's what that's going to come down to between those 2 teams is division wins. Obviously Miami, New England.
In that conversation, but I think stuff's going to happen. I want to put a pin in the Raiders because I want to come back to them later. But
yeah, so Miami, I think I said New England could be in the bubble. For 7, I don't really have a locked in 7. Let me pull up a list too, because I'm trying to remember these names.
But that's the only thing I'm saying in regards to New England, because I agree with you on your division winners, with the one exception. I might put Baltimore over Cleveland, but both of us, I think, have both those teams going to the playoffs. I think you have Baltimore going to the playoffs.
I have them as the bubble team that, depending down the stretch, like
like, why? Like, I don't. Let's skip Baltimore because we talked about them.
Yeah, we've talked about them a lot. Yeah, I think they're gonna be good, but I don't trust them long term. Like, I don't think they're gonna go deep into the playoffs if they make the playoffs, and I think they easily, especially now with these injuries.
Like, saying they're not going to go deep into the playoffs, I think is a completely different thing than saying they aren't going to make the playoffs, right? Like, because some teams are...
Their ceiling... Here's this. They have a ceiling, and their ceiling is, maybe a win in the playoffs. I think their floor is a lot lower, though, as in not even make the playoffs now. And that, I'm adding those injuries. I do think those injuries matter. I'm adding too much stock to it, but I'm being very wide with what my reasonings are with this. Maybe I'm trying to protect myself, but like I don't know. I just don't think. I mean, and maybe I should lock in and say they're not going to make the playoffs because I kind of feel that way, and maybe I'm trying to be like, well, if I'm wrong, I didn't say they're not going to make it, so maybe I will lock in and say they're not making the playoffs. Because I think I like the Dolphins, Raiders, Patriots, Chargers, and the Colts a little more. And again, like I said, these teams were all right at 10 wins or more, minus the Raiders. But those teams are right there. So all they needed is...
The only 10-win team that did not make the playoffs was the Dolphins.
The Dolphins, yeah. I was wrong about that.
So we had one 10-team team not it, and then the rest, there wasn't even a 9-win team. Next was Raiders at 8-8. And I agree. Like, I think... I can make cases for like a lot of these teams, right? Like, I could say like the Broncos have had a great defense, and now if they have a quarterback that just doesn't turn the ball over, maybe they win a few more games. I can say the Chargers, maybe for the first time in 20 years, they aren't going to have massive injuries to their whole team, and with a 30-year-old brand new head coach, he's able to reinvigorate stuff. But honestly, outside just like it's just hard to get excited about the Chargers as a franchise right now. You supposedly rebuilt the offensive line. You supposedly rebuilt the offensive line last year and the year before. Like and see it, I'm not going to trust it. Which, and I want to keep talking, but this is to your point too with the Raiders. Like I'm not convinced that the defense is fixed. So with the Chargers, I think it's a case of Justin Herbert and that offense. They have a ton of talent, but when I look at the franchise overall, I can't trust them. Like you still don't have a great kicking game. I still think they have one of the best rosters, top to bottom, in the NFL. But it's the Chargers. They're going to find a way to lose.
Yeah.
Right. The Raiders, I do like a lot of the things they've done. I don't understand. Like if they don't make the playoffs again this year, I mean, I don't think they're going to fire Gruden because he has that massive contract and you would have to, redo everything. But how much does it take for Gruden to have to look in the mirror and say, like, I guess that I made a couple mistakes? Like in Mayock, I mean, drafting multiple third-round picks and you're cutting them before they ever play a snap for you, that's a high pick. That has a lot of value. Like,
yeah,
that's a gigantic swing and a miss. And especially Mayock, that was supposed to be his entire thing, right? Was about drafting college players. And if you can't do that while you're trading great players away like Khalil Mack, and then you have zero pass rush, like maybe Ngakoue. Like I'll start with, I was surprised that the Raiders added as many players to the defensive line as they did, and now they are doing this like rotation thing, which is cool. But to me, I'm like, yeah, but they're still. I don't see any special. I think Yannick is the best pass rusher that they have, and maybe he is able to really add a presence, a pressure that they didn't have before. But when I look at, I see a lot of guys, so I don't see a significantly better defense than what I saw last year. I think Casey Hayward is old, and he wasn't great last year. Maybe he's able to turn it on in a new environment. I will say I love the free safety that they added, and I think moving Jonathan Abram to strong safety makes a ton of sense. Like that makes 100% sense. And I do think that they have solid defensive tackle play, but it's just. It didn't seem to me like they got, significantly better enough to be able to, add 2 more wins. And I think part of this too, Kyle, is just knowing John Gruden and how poorly played in December the past few years. And it's sort of how I feel about the Chargers too. When you lose games that you're supposed to win, it's hard to have that that faith in you. But then then Chargers go against the Chiefs and win a game like that, right? I
mean, so did the Raiders too, right? In Arrowhead for the first time in like a decade or something. That's not right, but in a long time. Yeah. Well, the thing is, okay, the defensive line is not just Ngakoue though. It's also Max Crosby, who in his rookie season had 10 sacks and then had 7 sacks last season. But he got double teamed a lot of the time. So now you have another guy on the other end. Cleve Farrell, I forget how to pronounce it. Anyway, he is more of a run stopper. So stop expecting a pass rush sack guy. He's not going to have those numbers. But if you watch his run game, he's tremendous at stopping the run. And then in the middle of the line, cool. Like you have a rotation. You're gonna have fresh legs. Awesome. I like the front. I think the front did get it tremendously better, even though like they weren't huge numbers last year, because the secondary also was garbage. It was all young guys in the back end. So yeah, Casey Hayward's old, but he knows the defense, so that should help at least players learn it. Also, there's not as much thinking as Paul Guenther had. Multiple players have come out and said like, yeah, the reason the Raiders weren't good and their defense sucked was Paul Guenther. It was just the system he was using made players stop and think. And you saw it in the defense. It was slow. So even though like there's no reason, like I agree, they didn't do tremendously a lot to address defense. Even though they did bring in a lot of linebackers, which I thought was interesting. Like KJ Wright is there now, which I don't think he's going to be a huge, and Denzel Perryman is there. Like it's weird. Like the people, if you look at their defense, it's like, wow, you guys got a lot of big names back. You got a lot of big names in here, but they are older players. So, but the defense was super young last year, and they fell apart. So hopefully this veteran presence, even Gerald McCoy is there, and watching his interviews and stuff, he's just so excited to be there and learn or teach. Like, he is fully embracing the role of, like, I am, the 6-time Pro Bowler or something like that. He's like, I am here to teach these young guys, and he's like, I love it. And even though I don't think he's going to get a ton of playing time, I think that's invaluable, especially because it is a young defense. And yeah, Trayvon Morig, he looks great. Excited to see him play more games. I'm excited to see that defensive scheme with Abram and him, because Abram, he needs to improve in the passing game, but he's already has the run stuff. And as long as he doesn't over commit on plays, because he gave up huge chunk yards. I think I talked about this last year. He gave up so many big plays because he would overcommit and try to get that big highlight hit and then just whiff, and the guy just walks by him, right? So, and he also was the reason we lost the Chiefs game, because he bit on Patrick Mahomes running. I don't think you really have a choice there, but if he stayed home, Travis Kelce isn't open in the end zone to win the game. You have to make Mahomes run for it. So, there's stuff there. So I think there's a lot to watch with the Raiders defense, and I understand, like, on paper, yeah, like, they did get a lot better, but at the same time, there's a lot of question marks with everyone they brought in. Like, why didn't Seattle re-sign KJ Wright? Why didn't they bring back Casey Hayward? Why? I mean, Gerald McCoy was not on a team. Yannick Ngakoue was on 4 different teams in the past year or two, right? So there are a lot of question marks, but I do think, I think they're going to win Monday night against Baltimore easily. Maybe not easily. Easily says a lot, but I think they're gonna win at home on Monday night. This was a team that did beat New Orleans with Drew Brees on Monday Night Football last season too. So it's as long as their offense does not take a step back and their defense just gets average of the pack better, there's no reason why this isn't a playoff team, in my opinion. Yeah, and that is a little bit of the fan coming out, and I'll be real there.
Or a fan than you would like to admit, but that's so fine. Because it's not just I think you can definitely make the arguments that the Raiders got better, but I think we've seen that every year with John Gruden, right? Like, you started off before they were 4-12, right? And then it was 7-9, and then 8-8. But are they going to get better enough to actually make that jump? Because it's not just like they have to win one more game, and it is interesting adding the 17th game now too. But they would have to overcome and jump a lot of these teams. And I think that the Broncos and the Chargers are both better this year, right? So what does that mean for the Raiders? And yeah, so you add a veteran presence like Casey Hayward back then. You're right. But you also have a rookie playing free safety. I feel like a lot of that stuff sort of balances out. Like I said, though, I think Abram is in a much better spot. I actually love their moves to bring in veterans like KJ Wright and Denzel Perryman, guys that have played under Gus Bradley's systems before. Like, the fact that they could do that during training camp after they suffered some injuries to their linebacking core, I thought made a ton of sense. I'm glad that you understand that Gerald McCoy is old and not going to play a lot, but I do. Yeah, he is a great mentor, right? So that move also made sense.
Yeah, he's a pure locker room guy, I think, and I love that.
But I also think that the Raiders' offensive line,
that's a huge question mark too.
I don't think it's significantly worse, right? Like, I don't think that you're going from Cleveland this year to what the Chargers had last year. Like, you're not going from first to worst. But I don't know if it's as strong as what it's been the past year or two. Maybe it's better. Maybe with Alex Leatherwood, he becomes one of the best tackles in the NFL, right? So we just don't know yet. But I think that's just my biggest question with the defense overall. Like, maybe in Gus Bradley systems, these pieces fit together really well. I think so much of football is chemistry. It's understanding your role. So I'm 100% willing to say I can't wait to see what they look like. But I think that's kind of what I say about the Raiders every year. And I think this is because is that I've been excited since John Gruden got there for it to be like, all right, let's go, let's see it. And it just never happens. So that's where part of my stuff is. And then when I say, because I understand what you're saying about how a lot of these teams you put ahead of Baltimore, that's kind of how I feel about the Raiders right now. Like, I don't love Pittsburgh. I probably like Pittsburgh more than Las Vegas, though. Baltimore, Cleveland, Tennessee. I think the Colts are probably there, but I think there's aspects of the Colts that I like better, but I like Derek Carr better. So that's somewhat
sure.
of a wash. And I do think with the Chargers, I find it so interesting because I do think the Chargers are more talented, but I think the Raiders are a better run franchise at this moment in time. Look, Brandon Staley might being a Hall of Fame head coach. I do not understand why you hire a guy who's been a defensive coordinator for 1 year just because he knows who Sean McVay is. Hopefully, great. I want him to be great. I have zero faith in that hiring as an offensive coach, or as a head coach.
For sure, yeah. Dang. God damn it. I was going to tie it back to the question you had to end it, but I can't think of the.
I will just say, so let's go ahead and put like a $5 or $10 bet on this though, because I would 100% think Baltimore's going to win.
All right, yeah, let's do that then.
Like, I can't believe, especially to say that they're going to win easily. Like,
I took that back because I didn't mean that. That was 100% the fan being like, Raiders are gonna win. That I'm taking that back, not easily. I do think the Raiders are gonna win though. A field goal or by a couple points. Where's what?
Where's the game at?
In Vegas, with Also, tickets dropped so much. They were like $800 like a couple weeks ago. They're now like $200 just to get in the door on opening night, and they keep dropping because Raiders are one of the only teams that are having fans. They must be vaccinated. Also, Raiders are 100% vaccinated as a team, so that is awesome to hear.
Both of those things is me coming out of Las Vegas, but I'm in total support of it. The Raiders were not a franchise that I thought was one saying that. Right, I was expecting it to be this like the San Francisco 49ers or something doing that.
Yeah.
Kudos to them.
Kudos to Mark Davis. He's like he hasn't even gone to a home game yet. Last season he's like I ain't going without the fans, and that's awesome. I love Mark Davis.
Our team is vaccinated is actually it is not nothing. Because even if your players test positive, they can get back to your team so much quicker. 3 negative tests within 48 hours. It's not this 10-day window, right? Like, it's a huge advantage for your team to have your team 100% vaccinated. And they can say that had nothing to do with Mac Jones or some of these other players, or not Mac. I do think it's funny that Cam backwards, like they're complete opposite players in like every sense of the word.
Yeah, that's really funny. There was some good designs though if they did a weird Miami thing where they brought both in at times, you know?
Yeah,
like Cam Mac.
Be a line, and I'm even more. Okay, do you want to do a $5 bet or $10 bet?
Let's do 5. Okay, we'll save $5. The bigger bets for later when we get real into it.
Last year.
What was that?
Is it just win-loss? Whoever wins.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
Simple. Love it. Raiders are gonna win.
All right. That means you're giving me the Ravens, who are projected to win by 4 points.
That's great for them. They're not going to win. Like, I'm telling you, this Raiders offense is still good. Like they kept getting over. Like the reason the Raiders have not made the playoffs because of the offense. The offense is great and tremendous. And this is the first time I actually feel confident in a defensive coordinator. I never really loved the defense with Gunther at all. So again, we got to see it. And this is more the fan being like, oh no, this defense is going to be good. There's still a lot of question marks. Like I said, these are a lot of older guys that they brought in at key positions. But yeah, no, I think Monday night they're going to win.
All right.
All right, moving on. We're done with sports. Let's talk some Marvel stuff. MCU. MCU is crazy. Really cool. 10 plus years now going on. Phase 4 is rocking. Phase 4 is rocking. I have very much enjoyed Phase 4. It started off with WandaVision and the Falcon and Winter Soldier. WandaVision, great mystery. Loved it. Hated all the deception that they did. No Mephisto. But that's okay. For our full thoughts on both of those, we recapped every single episode, so you can catch that on our YouTube channel as well. So go look over there if you want to hear our full thoughts. But overall, I liked WandaVision. I like Falcon and Winter Soldier more. Drew?
Yeah, I was kind of the opposite. So with that, I thought one was spectacular. I think because of my age and what I grew up, like I grew up watching a lot of Growing Pains and stuff like that. I had a lot of I worked with a lot of middle schoolers and high schoolers who all hated the way that they did Quicksilver. I loved it. Like it was great to me based on the sitcoms that I grew up watching. And I think it's funny the way that changes with kids and who actually ends up watching these things. As a 31-year-old, it was perfect. I thought that show was perfect. And even with the Mephisto stuff, I think bricks are being laid. I'll just leave it there. And then Falcon in the Winter Soldier, I thought was a great too. I thought there was a couple things that they could have done a little bit more nuance. There were one or few individual scenes, and then a couple things where it's like I felt like they didn't really have a great grasp on like, wait, so who's representing who in the symbolism and a lots of stuff. But overall, fantastic. And I really just for the development of those characters too, I thought it was great. And then I'll be honest, I haven't seen any of MODOK on a Hulu. I watched the trailer.
I'm not
Hating to me.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't even include that in this. It's like I said, it's like Robot Chickeny and
like you either. Like it's just weird. Like if it's not canon to me, like I'm not going to go back and watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., right? Like if it's not MCU, I don't have an invested interest in watching it.
Yeah, well, the whole thing about the MCU is why we're even probably talking about it is that it's all connected. Like from Iron Man 1 all the way to now, like it's a continuous through line. So when you get these like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and all the ABC shows are now kind of retroactively not a part of the canon anymore, okay, I'm not going to go watch them anymore. Like, it's just not that interesting to me, especially Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which was pitched as the idea of being interconnected, but it never actually did it. You just got references and, like, the side B characters coming in. It's like, all right, like, I don't care. Even though, like, I think the stories they told were good and cool, it just never lived up to the full potential. Like, the fact that Ghost Rider, like, that's pretty cool to me that Ghost Rider was in that show, right? But I never really enjoyed the character and like what they were doing, and it's just it's a network television show. I have a problem right now with network television shows.
It is all Josh Whedon's fault, and the thing is that the whole why the MCU has worked, which Star Wars is finally kind of starting to learn from, but even still, Jon Favreau was like, Disney, get out of the way and let me make a universe.
I know.
If Kevin Feige is not that central figure, the MCU is not as good as it is. The fact that they try to do these things but not like work together was doomed to fail from the start, especially when you're going to try something as new to modern fan or to most a relaxed fan like Inhumans or something like that, right? So it's just crazy. I will say that this is one concern that I have with the MCU going forward, right? Loki came out. I loved Loki. I did not think it had the same. I could rewatch WandaVision a ton, right? I didn't have that same rewatchability with Falcon and the Winter Soldier because I think it was more of a straight story and like action. Where like WandaVision, I was the person who would like rewind and slow down scenes. Like I'm trying to pick up all these clues because I think Mephisto is hiding behind every corner and stuff, right? What I find interesting is with Loki, like I did rewatch it because there were some really cool stuff that happened, and the whole TVA is so crazy that just trying to get an understanding of like how this works, even the cartoon at the beginning, it made sense. My one concern is that one of the reasons the MCU has been so good to me is that there's been stakes. When characters die, they have died. Whether that's been Odin or we'll get to Black Widow in a second, but Black Widow died, right? So even when the Black Widow movie comes out, and it's like they're still telling the story, but it's a prequel, I'm fine with that because the character is still dead and not coming back. The multiverse, I think, is amazing, and I think it's super fascinating. And I can make the case too. The Loki that we see is not the same Loki that died, so it's not like they revived Loki. However, I worry that we're getting to a point where nobody is ever dead, where they can just go back in time or find a powerful being and fix something, and it's just nothing ever has any real consequences. Because to me, that's very, very clear what Star Wars did, where literally they're going back to episode 1 showing, oh, Darth Maul, you know, who we all thought was dead for 10 years, no he's not. Or the Emperor that we all thought was dead for 50 years, no he's not.
That was
like
dumb.
That drives me absolutely crazy, when it's just like, what's the point of killing these characters off if they're never actually dead? That means that the movie, anyways.
Yeah,
so that's my biggest concern, is that if they can just say, oh, this person died, but we can just go to a different universe and pluck them out, I'm worried that Marvel will lose some of the reality based kind of science and magic that it's been based on, that like I've loved so much. And I'm glad they brought in Kang. I'm glad they're doing this stuff. My thing is just, I don't want to get into a case where consequences don't matter, because all we have to do is go back in time, find some Infinity Stones, and reverse the snap again, right? Like, that's on track.
Oh no, for sure. Yeah, like, I remember. I think it was after the Loki finale, which, spoilers, obviously we're not holding back. We're way past that point. Get over it. You know, Loki, or, you know, they released the multiverse with Sylvie killing Kang, that version of Kang. And then after that, you know, saw stuff on internets. People say, oh, this is how Iron Man can come back. Welcome back, RDJ. I'm like, no, like, I'm going to say this. I never really loved the character of Iron Man that much. I don't know why people put so much. I get he was the first, and like, I do love Robert Downey Jr.'s take on it. I think he's a great Tony Stark, a great Iron Man. It just was not my favorite character. It's all personal. So like, I'm not saying it's a bad character. It's just, for me, it's like, I don't know why everyone loves him so much. Like, I get he's good, but like, I don't know, I'm way more interested in these side B characters, like, you know, Spider-Man. Now Spider-Man's kind of taken that spot where he's the golden child of the MCU, which is gonna get annoying in its own right. But yeah, no, I agree. Do not bring back people like, even the fact that they could bring back a different version of Iron Man at some point, which I think we will get to that point. Long term, we will see like a weird, with all the Kang stuff, like we'll see this different variant of Iron Man, and maybe that's evil. I would be okay with that. An evil Tony Stark, that's cool. But if it's bringing him back and he's kind of fitting that same mold he was in and just kind of boop, that's dumb. And I really don't think they would do that, just based on everything we have seen and read and heard and what they've already done. But it is a concern, right? That they now have there's a legitimate reason on how to explain why people are back, because there's endless possibilities of people. You know, we saw multiple versions of a Loki.
Yeah, and so I'm glad that you clarified that too, because at first I thought you were saying Alan Downey Jr. didn't do a good job playing the role. It's like, oh no, he's fucking phenomenal. Yeah, I love the character, but I think that they've done pretty much as much as you can do with that character. Like, it was 10 years, you did that character arc. Like,
his ending's perfect. Like,
yeah, if you want to continue it, you either continue it, you can do lots of things through the Spider-Man storyline, through Iron Lad. They already set up Harvey. Like, they could do it with the Iron Heart storyboard, right? Like, there's so many different ways that you could still have like Iron Man influence this stuff, and the idea of him and everything they laid down. I mean, that was frankly, Robert Downey or Iron Man was a huge impact on Spider-Man Far From Home, even though he's in it for like 2 seconds, right? Like, that's a big thing. And yeah, the fact that Chris Evans like becomes an old man and dies, even this was something that irritated me during Falcon and the Winter Soldier, how they kept on like alluding to him being like a spaceman somewhere. Like, okay, maybe, but like, to me, no, Chris Evans, like that version of Cap is now gone. Like, Iron Man's gone. And if you're bringing them back, then like, let me in on it. But I will say that's one of the only issues I kind of have with these Disney Plus things. They're laying a lot of groundwork for stuff that if it doesn't end up happening, like if I never actually see Torres become Falcon, then I'm kind of like, okay, well, there was a lot of buildup for not a lot of payoff at the end, right? That's just the stuff that I kind of mean. So I find that, weird. Because I loved the character of Iron Man, but yeah, I think that the character has been beat to death in the ways that they could do it. I would even argue in the past 5 years that they did their stuff. There wasn't much Iron Man had this great arc through the first, three, and then like I think the first two Avengers film up until Civil War, and then I think it was kind of just stagnant until they eventually got to Endgame, right? They've taken the characters far as they could. So yeah, we'll see what happens with these other characters, but ultimately, yeah, I don't know. This is a shitty spot. So yeah, your turn.
Yeah, I will say the Disney Plus shows, the WandaVision and Falcon, did not stick the landing for me fully. I still like them, but like WandaVision, the finale, I think also just the CGI and budget was different, and I just remember being like, okay. And I haven't rewatched either yet. I'm kind of waiting to. We're currently rewatching the MCU. We just watched Black Panther, so we're on. Oh, we just watched Ant-Man, the second one. Oh, we didn't finish Ant-Man and the Wasp. Hannah fell asleep, but that's where we're at. So once we get back caught up, I probably will rewatch them. But yeah, for me, they didn't stick the landing, and I think Loki did better. But that's just my one issue so far, is them like getting the budget they need and actually sticking the landing on the show. I think Loki was the best one. I just like WandaVision, it just felt. Maybe, and I think WandaVision had the problem of being a mystery for most of it, and the theories just went crazy, right? It was Mephisto. We're getting Reed Richards at one point. We're getting so many other things. Like, it was just all over the place, the theories and such. So maybe that's also why it was, at the end of the day, it was a Wanda and Vision story, right? It never got bigger than that. It was always that, while still referencing and building up to other things. But I think mostly for me, it's the CGI in WandaVision that kind of took me out of it. I was like, okay. And like just the way it was solved was like, okay. Falcon and Winter Soldier, it's just the whole plot of the freedom fighters, I forget what they were called in the show, but Carly Morgenthau and her band of people, it just kind of was like, okay, like it never felt like they had a clear idea of what to do with them. And of course they changed some of the storylines from the pandemic and such. At least that's what the reports were. So I think that's also why it just felt a little weird. And then I think Loki was the best one so far that stuck the landing, because like it introduced Kang and they just let it sit. Like that whole finale episode is Kang monologuing, which was amazing. And he just talks and explains, and he was able to do whatever he wanted, and it's its own take. And we're gonna get a totally different guy. It's going to be the same actor, but it's going to be a totally different guy in Quantumanium. We're going to get a different version of that, and that's super exciting. So I loved how, kitty, there's a cat on screen. Sorry. I like that ending. So I think that was the best one for me.
Yeah, I had no issues with WandaVision. I think people had their expectations blown way out of proportion with the whole thing. Like the only thing that irritated me, because I was fine with it, ending up being Agatha the whole time. I thought Catherine Hahn is amazing, and the way that they ended with the Darkhold and stuff, I thought everything was so cool. I didn't personally notice issues with the CGI going on at that time, and then Falcon I thought had a million different issues in production that they had to change. They had to change where they were filming. They had to do. I noticed more issues with their CGI trying to make, Atlanta look like Germany and stuff with a couple other things. What I found interesting with Loki, Jonathan Majors did such a great job playing. He who remains there.
That's the it's not even Kang technically.
Yeah. It's a not Kang. I think that for some people, like it's the same thing. I think all of these things just go down to what your expectations are. Because when I talk to high schoolers, they didn't realize he who remains was a Kang variant. So we meet for youth group after the final episode, and they're like, it was stupid, I hated it. And also, like, I knew that there was going to be a second season of Loki from the beginning. So to me, it's like, they're not going to. If you already have a second season planned, you're probably not going to wrap up every loose tangent here, especially like we saw how the story was going. We know Doctor Strange 2 and the Multiverse of Madness is coming. We know we're going to have a Spider-Man movie that's going to deal with crazy multi-dimensional crap. So because of like all of that, I think a lot of these Marvel things, it just depends what your expectations are. And like I'll say too, so like What If came out, I was under the impression that What If was going to be solely a, you know, just a bunch of one-off, you know, spin-offs. What would if, you know, if Peggy Carter made one, you know, butterfly effect decision, right? But then the more that these episodes came out, it became more and more clear to me that these stories are kind of connected.
They're building to something.
Same universe, or these are all different universes, but like I can't wait to see the last one. I haven't seen the zombie episode 1 yet, but especially with the Doctor Strange episode, and then also looking at the future, and then knowing how Doctor Strange was behaving in the Spider-Man trailer, which was really interesting. I have so many questions about that Spider-Man trailer. It makes zero sense to me.
And I love every second of it.
Right? Like everything makes sense, but I don't. Why does Doctor Strange do this spell? Like just that fact alone.
Why does he have the Eye of Agamotto? Like that's destroyed. Thanos destroyed it. That thing's gone. The Infinity Stone is gone. So why does he still have that? Going back in time, baby. It's a whole different version.
Maybe it's just like
Mephisto.
That doesn't have the time stone in it.
But it was destroyed. Like, so he remade it so he could wear it for his outfit.
Like, I'm just saying, he could show a picture of the Eye of Agamotto to any jeweler in Nepal, and they would be able to make it for him.
But why? But why?
Because it completes the ensemble.
Also, it could just be Marvel putting stuff in to throw everyone off. Like, because like that's the thing. That's what I love is like Marvel changes their trailers. They like in the Infinity War, Hulk was there. Nope, it's Banner and Hulkbuster actually. Like
I like is I remember you saying when those trailers came out that you didn't want to watch them because you just wanted to go in fresh and stuff, but like the way Marvel does it, it just makes me excited. Like,
now I'm okay with it. Like the biggest thing was tangent. The third Transformers movie, most of the trailer was the end battle, and halfway through the movie they all die, and I'm in the theater like, well, no, they don't. You showed so much of the end battle in the trailer, like this isn't it. And then that emotional punch was gone. And it's also Michael Bay Transformers. But that's like I remember being one of the moments because I was younger when that happened. I was like, okay, I'm not watching trailers. Trailers are dumb. But now Marvel, yeah, they keep changing it. So I'm like, I don't need to see another Spider-Man trailer. Leave it at that. Just have maybe an expanded trailer closer to when it comes out a week or two before. But I don't really want to see anything else. I love just where I'm at with that movie and with all the other movies like Shang-Chi. I stopped watching trailers because once I saw the one and they had Abomination in it, I was like, I don't want to see anything else. I'm happy with what I saw. Still haven't seen the movie, but like I don't need to see these trailers anymore, and I kind of like that.
I think that they're like, to me, because as soon as I see that trailer, I get way more excited about it because I start to I have questions, I have theories. I think it's just amazing, and especially with the way that like Marvel does it, where they don't only change different things within the trailer, they lie about what time this is taking place, and they just also go ahead. I forgot what I was going to say.
Oh, I was going to tie it back into the Marvel shows, which is why I think another reason why maybe they don't stick the landing as hard, and it's because we get time to sit with it. When you go into a movie, you get it all at once and you're done, right? But with like WandaVision, you get to sit with it and then you form your own ideas, intentionally or not. Like you are thinking of where it's going to end up eventually. You're getting your own hints as it goes on. So the longer we sit with it, sometimes it's just a different way to view it. And I do love the shows, and I love that they're making these shows. I'm excited for the Hawkeye this season or this year, and then Moon Knight I'm really excited for long term. That's still pre-production right, or they're filming right now, but super far away. But yeah, I think just sitting with it sometimes, like I think maybe that also lends itself to not landing as hard in one way or another. I think it's just a different viewing experience as opposed to the movies.
Yeah, I think that like to me, so much of what like WandaVision was setting up Scarlet Witch, right? And so I just think like I kind
of closed out that Vision chapter.
Yeah, the biggest thing like the biggest issue I had with WandaVision in terms of, you know, sticking the landing was Paul Bettany pissed me off with his shit, saying I get to work with this actor that I've always wanted to work with. Like that, I think pissed fans off more overall than Mephisto. I could be totally wrong, but because that was an actor saying something very specific. You know, it's not anything else. It's you, and it's just you being a dick. It's just him trolling people, and like I get that. Anyways,
yeah, it makes sense.
I also like the fact, like, if you go back and watch the Loki trailer right now, you are going to see scenes that occur in there that were not.
Yeah.
And that's, again, just one of the reasons why I think Marvel, I can totally understand, especially with like a lot of bad comedies where the 5 funniest minutes are what the trailer is. Like, I totally get that. But with Marvel, I trust them now. Like, they do a great job of being able to, I think, give you like enough to have like a general idea. But especially with these characters, Shang-Chi, I know nothing about. So I'm excited to like learn a brand new character backstory. Black Panther, I knew who the character was, but I didn't know the history of how Black Panther kind of got the powers and stuff. I only saw Wakanda in a couple episodes of like X-Men as a kid. So like it was cool to be able to like see these new characters fully developed, and not a character like, you know, like Steve Rogers, where I've kind of heard that storyline again and again and again.
Spider-Man, right? Where we don't need another origin story, which is like, I like how they did that ultimately. All right, let's talk Black Widow. I love the movie Black Widow. Ultimately what I come down to is it is a movie that I wish happened years ago in the proper timeline order, but it wouldn't have been the same movie if it happened at that time. So like I'm okay with it coming out and being a prequel and not actually mattering that much. Like the story is told and it's kind of done with, outside of what it sets up for her sister Yelena.
Yeah.
So overall, like the whole vibe to it was great. Like the opening credits to the end, like I like the vibe. It was an action movie, but kind of the stuff they talked about was throughout the whole movie. I love the chemistry between the three of Scarlett and her sister, and then David Harbour. I forget the actress's name. Florence Pugh. Those three, I think they were hilarious together. Just how they interacted, and him thinking it's like a family, but them like it's not a family. But then actually it was a family, and like they actually, even though it was not real, it was real. You know, all that stuff. It was really good. Again, I just wish it was. I wish she got her due when it came out. You know, like I wish it was earlier and we got a proper, because it really adds context for her character, and in Endgame, like it really justifies her kind of being like, I'm okay. Like I've kind of made peace with my past. I know like the Red Room's gone now. You have a family, Hawkeye. Like I'm okay. I need to do this. Like it made, especially her being there for 5 years too, during the blip, and like basically taking over the Avengers, so to speak, and kind of leading that. It would have just added more context for her character, but again, we wouldn't have gotten that movie.
Yeah, I don't think that I enjoyed Black Widow as much as nearly everyone I've talked to. I thought there was a lot of good stuff with it. I thought it was fine. I still enjoyed it. I think it was like 2 hours and 20 minutes or something like that. And I guess I felt like it was too long for the story that it was actually telling. I no problem that they made Taskmaster a woman, like that's fine. But I didn't like that Taskmaster wasn't really Taskmaster. He was just like, it was just a robot, right? Like effectively, like that's how it was programmed. Now, the cool thing about that is that, like, yeah, somebody could steal that Taskmaster, you know, armor, suit and stuff, and effectively bring that character back. But I felt like Taskmaster was this really cool villain in the comics. And the fact that he could fight all the different Avengers and stuff, I would have liked to see Taskmaster more in a Civil War type.
I was going to say Civil War, yeah.
Like multiple enemies and see that stuff. So in this way, it was just like, yeah, but you're like Yelena to a certain extent was kind of a Taskmaster to a Natasha, just in the fact that they're trained the same, right? So like Yelena would have known all the moves that Natasha had, which she talks about how she do the land and flip thing, right? So
yeah.
And like, so I thought that the comedy aspect, I thought I agree. The family scenes, both in America, going to Cuba, them on the plane talking about fallopian tubes and stuff. Like all of that, I thought was great. And I agree. I didn't need this movie coming out in the proper timeline, but if this movie would have come out when it was supposed to, meaning before Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I think I would have had a much better reception to it because it would have made the Val thing bigger at that in this moment in time for that end credit scene, and then that would have made Falcon and Winter Soldier not just make more sense, but a bigger deal to have Val there, right? Also, it's if you look at the TVA symbol, upside down, it becomes Val. It's weird. It means nothing.
No, it doesn't. What's his name even said that? He's like, oh wow, that's really interesting and funny. He's like, not intended.
So like there were definitely aspects to like to it that I thought were great. I guess I just thought overall it seemed long for everything to happen and just to get there, right? It was also something where I think since we just saw Sharon Carter use that face thing in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, then to see it, a month or two later in Black Widow, it's just like, okay, but we just saw that. Like, is that going to be your like? And I will say it makes more sense that Black Widow would have had access to it. It makes more sense that Black Widow would have.
Well, she already had it, right?
In Falcon or in
Winter Soldier,
America too. But having Falcon and the Winter Soldier come out before Black Widow, to me, I think ended up doing a disservice to it because all of the like, oh shit moments just weren't nearly as good to me. And then even the way like how Black Widow couldn't fight the guy at the end, and then like first of all, as soon as like they said that like, well, you're smelling this, it's like, okay, so she's gonna break her nose, right? Like I felt that was obvious, and I'm like, why is this taking so long for her to break this nose and for all of this to happen? I think it was good for her character to end up going back to the Red Room and shutting all that stuff down. I just and maybe to your point, Kyle, because it was a prequel, it didn't really add to the universe at large, with the exception of Val and a couple things that you could point to, maybe comes back in some way, but overall it didn't add to a continual universe and story building. It didn't really answer the Budapest question, really. I mean, it kind of did, but like not like what they described in the movie. Why would she have said this is just like Budapest when they're fighting the Chitauri, right? Like I guess she's joke.
Yeah, it's like a joke then at that point, which is fine. But yeah, also I like them just arguing over how to actually pronounce it, which is funny because they did pronounce it wrong in the first one.
Yeah,
like that Budapest.
Yeah,
Budapest. Yeah. It's a smaller scale movie without really big stakes, and it's cool. I don't know what else we'll get from it outside of seeing Yelena more often because she's working for Val, which is cool, and that again it lends credence to them setting up the Thunderbolts in some way. Oh, also the ending annoyed me when she's like, I'll take care of Thunderbolt Ross, you guys go, and then they just cut away, and it's like, wait, what? We didn't get any conversation. Like, you couldn't he'd be like, what's going on, Natasha's like, well, I took down the Russian spy ring that you couldn't find forever, and he's like, oh, okay. Like there was no scene there. It's just like cut to her in a totally new look and outfit. It's like, oh, okay. I mean, you really couldn't just show us that. You couldn't get him back for one more scene just to film that one. But that was part really annoyed me. So the ending was kind of there. It's like it missed opportunities, I think.
I agree. I will say I was glad that for as brief as it was that they did add Thunderbolt Ross in that, because I think, and we talked about this a whole lot during Falcon and Winter Soldier, but I'm really glad that they do seem to be going with the Thunderbolts there. And it looks like they're clearly building towards the Young Avengers on the like hero side. So I don't know if they're just going to have Spider-Man effectively be the Iron Man. I mean, that's what they've been building up to with this, right? That he'll be the leader in some way. I think it's just going to be I'm excited for Spider-Man because I think he's always been one of the more grounded characters. The friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, living in New York, dealing with the personal issues, having the secret identity and stuff like that. So the fact that that's going to get really magical and crazy with the Doctor Strange component and bringing back, Alfred Molina and Jamie Foxx and stuff. I'm really excited for that one.
And Green Goblin, whatever the actor's name is, I can't think of right now.
Willem Dafoe.
Dafoe.
Actually, Dafoe, and everybody's been pronouncing it wrong for the past 40 years. I just learned that.
Wait, what is it?
William Dafoe.
Huh. That's dumb.
Whatever. Oh,
I like Dafoe better. Interesting. Eternals. That was the one. We both haven't seen Shang-Chi, which I'm excited about, and it's the highest rated Marvel movie, and it's making some of the most money of any of them, which is funny because the executive producer called it an experiment, and which is just dumb, but I'm glad it's doing well, and I can't wait to see it. I really am excited.
Well, I am glad Abomination is in it because I think that's going to add to the Thunderbolts. I think he's one Thunderbolts, and that's why he's there, right?
Apparently, and apparently there's the end credit scene is wild and like hints at stuff and has a good cameo. That's all I've seen from it. Sorry if that's a spoiler. I have avoided everything else though. I was hated that I saw that one tweet that said that the end credit is good.
I have plans to see it this next weekend, but I can't. I'm not doing anything till I see it.
Yeah, same thing. Eternals. That's I think the last one I want to talk about right now because that's the only thing that we see so far. It looks really cool. The cinematography looks fantastic. The first trailer was phenomenal. The second one I couldn't help but watch, and I was like, okay. I hope it's just, I don't know. How do you feel about it? Because I'm really excited for it, but I'm trying to temper my expectations because I don't really know what it fits into and what they are going to be going forward, since it is retroactively talking about how they were always around and just didn't do anything.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited. Like, I think that they're gonna obviously go into way more depth, about all that stuff. The reason I'm excited for it is because I think it's really important to the building of the MCU universe, right? I guess I shouldn't say MCU universe. That's like saying ATM machine. But this idea that like we know some stuff about like Thanos, right? That he was part something, but also part.
In the comics, he's part deviant, which is what the Eternals are fighting. They were made to fight the deviants. In the comics, he is part deviant, but that's not set in the MCU. That was never set.
Well, yeah, okay.
Because he's a Titan, like he's the Mad Titan.
Oh, okay, Titan. Yeah, that's
in the MCU.
Right. I think that there is. I think he still might be part deviant in the MCU. I maybe they haven't explicitly said that. But it would not surprise me if they do that type of thing. But my biggest thing is that I don't know anything about the Celestials. I don't know anything about how the MCU says the universe was created and founded. So to me, this is like, it's almost like watching like a documentary. I think the time period pieces, I think everything you said about the cinematography is dead on. Absolutely right. I think with this, it's harder to have expectations for it because I don't know the story. I know nothing about the Eternals besides what I've seen in these trailers, and what the trailers have told me about what the Eternals does, and they come to protect us from the deviants, right? I think this is also just going to show us, what mattered with the snap and things coming back. So, yeah, I think that I'm still excited for it because I think I have no idea what to expect, and I find that I enjoy these movies a whole lot more when I go into it with really no expectations. I liked the Joker movie with Joaquin Phoenix, but people told me it was the best movie ever, and it just wasn't. Like it was good. I enjoyed it. I watched the whole thing. It's not the best movie ever.
The best movie ever.
That limited my ability to enjoy. 100%. So I think with like a lot of these things, Marvel hasn't hit home runs on everything. Ant-Man and the Wasp, I don't think it was great. Thor 2, not great. Even Thor 1, not great. But I think especially when you look at their recent products and how they've learned and grown, like, yeah, I'm real excited for all these going forward.
Yeah. I think it's cool what they're setting up with Eternals, with Kit Harington supposedly playing this character that I know nothing about. And it's like, I'll take more Kit Harington. I like the actor. I'm excited to see him not in Game of Thrones. You know, let's see him do something other than that. Uh, Other than that, yeah, like I agree. Just don't know a lot about that, and that's exciting. So I do hope it sticks and it sets up some cool lore stuff. That's kind of where I'm at with the MCU right now. Is like, let's get more world building. Like, what are the rules for this post snap? What are the rules for this time travel? What are the rules for the multiverse? Because that's going. We don't even know what that actually means going forward.
The time travels. That's the only which. Yeah. I'll admit, I think time travel is probably different between using Pym particles and using the time stone and using maybe a celestial power, right? So maybe that affects things differently. But yeah, they just
yeah.
I feel like they kind of need to establish these are the rules.
Well,
and stick with it.
So there was, after Loki finale, it came out that Kevin Feige had like a 2-hour meeting with a bunch of directors and everyone in Marvel talking about the rules of the multiverse. So everyone's on the same page on what and how to address it. So as long as, you know, there is that at least, which I was very like, okay, as long as there's some set of rules that the directors know about, that's fine. Because that's always the thing, right? Is when they contradict each other, especially when you start getting into multiverse and time travel. It gets wonky and it gets hard to actually understand what's going on. So that did happen, and I wish like we would never know fully what was said, but damn, I hope they recorded it, and then after everything, like in 10 years from now, when we get that second, you know, big end game type thing, they can, you know, release that as a bonus feature. And it's like, oh yeah, this is when Feige set the rules. And it's like, oh, that'd be so cool. But yeah.
Well, yeah, and just the last thing, like with this too, like I think it's crazy that already I've forgotten at a lot of the things they set up in Endgame and in Far From Home. Just as far as like, I thought it was weird that they brought back Harvey, Iron Lad, to Tony Stark's funeral. Like he was a pretty minor character in, you know, Iron Man 3. I mean, I guess, you know, he had 10 minutes of, you know, screen time or something. To bring him back to not really do anything with it, it just seemed weird, right?
Yeah.
And then it really seems like they were going to set up both in Spider-Man Far From Home and in WandaVision. They laid all this groundwork for the Kree and for, you know, there's Kree Among Us, there's sleeper cells. Nick Fury's up there.
I mean, we're still getting Secret Invasion. Like that's.
We're getting it. Yeah, right. But what like I'm saying is that like when you have Endgame happen, right? And then the first two things, you have Spider-Man and then you have WandaVision, or what they're laying the ground in, again, because WandaVision was supposed to come later too, but they're laying the groundwork for the Kree and for Secret Invasion. And then that is totally on the back burner with the last 3 Marvel properties that have come out, where it's all focusing on the multiverse, which is great. But I am more interested in the Kree storyline. And basically, I hope that they're able to still stick with like one primary universe going forward. I don't want to keep on bounced around between different universes. I think it's good
different universes. In what do you mean, like different? So like there's the two, you were right, like they're focusing, there's like 2 storylines, like a Kree subplot and then a multiverse subplot, or not really subplot, but like it is a subplot, right?
Yep.
Are you saying that you don't want them the multiverse eventually lead into we're in a whole new brand new universe? Is that what you're saying?
What I'm saying is I don't want to have this Spider-Man movie where Spider-Man is a good guy, and then this Spider-Man movie where it's still Tom Holland, but it's taking place in a completely different universe where everybody, you know, looks like elephants or something. Like, horrible example, but I'm just saying, like, I want there to be one universe that builds up. I don't want all these random ass stories that don't have any impact. So that's the thing with like What If. I find What If interesting because it's just a 30-minute show. It's just one random storyline, right? But if all of a sudden, let's say that's every Marvel movie, is just disconnected random stuff, that defeats what the MCU is to me. So that's what I'm trying to say. I still want the storylines to be building off of each other. And as far as universes go, I don't know if I love the Raimiverse, right? I hope that it's great. I think Alfred Molina was a tremendous Doc Ock. I think it was iconic. I think Willem Dafoe was a very good Green Goblin. That one's probably iconic too. But then I think we see a couple here like, did I really need Jamie Foxx's Electro?
I haven't watched that movie. I plan on watching it before it comes out because he's in it, so like
yeah, there's
a
couple that are going to pop up too, and so to me it's just like there are some things that like happen where it's like those two crazy cool. You bring in J.K. Simmons, like awesome. That makes a ton of sense, but I never really liked Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man all that much. I kind of like Andrew Garfield even less. So like part of that to me is just like I don't need these characters. And I get that this is part of the Spider-Verse thing, I imagine, or maybe they're just taking the inspiration from that and then kind of tying Doctor Strange into it. I'm also under the belief that maybe the person playing Doctor Strange isn't Doctor Strange. I think there's like so many things there. But I guess my bigger concern is that I thought that the X-Men movies were so purely executed. And frankly, I thought that Sony executed some pretty poor Spider-Man movies. Sure, Spider-Man 2 with Doc Ock, that one is rated pretty highly and fine. And maybe even the first Spider-Man 2. But The Amazing Spider-Man, I didn't like all that much. I thought it was a very kind of just basic, movie. And so that's my concern. Is just that like we start to expand everything so much to now it's like all connected instead of kind of being like a cohesive storyline building upon itself.
I will say that's what Into the Spider-Verse, that's always like Spider-Man has always had that in the comics too, like multiple Spider-Man interacting with each other, so it does make sense. But I get what you're saying too. Sam Raimi's Spider-Man was my Spider-Man, like that. I was a kid when that came out, so like there's so much nostalgia tied to that. Even though I've gone and rewatched them, like, oh, these aren't that great. Like there's really not, but there's a lot of things to like about him. I think he's so old. Peter Parker, he's so old, even from the first movie. Even Andrew Garfield's cool, right? Like that's something I read is like Tobey Maguire is like a good Peter Parker, and I agree with that. I think he's a good Peter Parker, Spider-Man wise, but like overall good Peter Parker. Andrew Garfield is like if Peter Parker was cool, because like Peter Parker's supposed to be like this nerd and kind of picked on. It's like no, like I watched The Amazing Spider-Man like 2 weeks ago. I agree with that take that I read was like, this is a cool Spider-Man. Because like, there's no reason why Andrew Garfield's going to be picked on and then like go and date Emma Stone. Like, he's just that version is cool. And I kind of like that you can kind of mess with that now. And I think retroactively, if they are both in this movie, which I'm pretty sure they are in No Way Home, there's set footage of them.
Right.
I'm pretty sure Tobey Maguire's in the trailer and just a deep fake of Tom Holland on him. Like, I'm pretty sure he's in the trailer. I think it retroactively kind of fixes some of those mistakes. It's just a different version of Spider-Man, which I think helps those movies, but it can hinder the MCU if they do that with other things and if they kind of lean on that too much. So I get what you're saying.
And but like also like there's a huge difference to me between multiple timelines and the Spider-Verse and the way that it's been, where I guess if I'm looking at the Miles Morales Into the Spider-Verse movie, sure, one of the guys is called Peter Porker, right? So I guess it's not really the same. But in general, in the way that I understood it with like the Spider-Man cartoon that I watched as a kid, there were different versions of a Spider-Man for sure, but it was all the same Peter Parker. Where like initially I thought what they were doing with this was that it was Alfred Molina and it was just him going to be, there's a Doc Ock in every universe. So he in this here, and it's the same actor. The fact that I'm getting all these different actors playing Peter Parker gives me confusion because it's like, okay, but that doesn't.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Same as his parents, right? How are you both Peter Parker? So that's the thing where it's like, it's not that if there were 8 Tom Holland Spider-Mans, I would feel like that would be more true to the Spider-Verse than bringing in these alternative ones. I could be totally wrong. I don't know nearly enough about comic books to, I guess, be stating that. But that's the only thing where I'm like, it has nothing to do with the Spider-Verse of it. It's the bringing in these older actors. And I guess my biggest pause for concern is because I'm more this is what they're going to do with X-Men. And I would rather have them just recast X-Men entirely because I don't want anything to do with those movies. They were so fucking bad. Like,
Yeah. As much as I would love to, yeah. As much as I would love to see Hugh Jackman again, like Logan was the perfect send-off. There was reports that the third Deadpool movie was a Wolverine Deadpool road trip movie, which would have been phenomenal, but it is what it is. I agree. They need to recast and just give it time. Like, give us a Fantastic Four first, and then worry about mutants. Like, I think they're building up to that in their very slow way, and I think they need to let that property rest. Just like Fantastic Four, like that's the end of Phase 4. That's 3 years from now, probably 2 to 3 years from now, before we get that movie, and I let that sit for same reasons. Last thing I want to say about Spider-Man, then maybe we could probably close up, is I saw this on Twitter, and I really like it, is that when Tobey Maguire shows up in whatever way, Tom Holland is like, Uncle Ben? Like, what? And that little twist would be cool, because it has happened before where different versions like, wait, that's your Uncle Ben. It's like, no, I'm Spider-Man, and I'm Peter Parker in my universe. But actually, in Tom Holland's, that's Uncle Ben. And this is the first time they've ever referenced Uncle Ben is in the last episode of What If Zombies. And it's just a throwaway line, whatever, Spider-Man's talking. But I thought that was really interesting that in actuality, that's just a side tangent. No one has ever referenced Uncle Ben in the MCU until What If.
Really?
Yeah. Huh. Yeah. Bizarre, right? They kind of loosely, but they never say that's Uncle Ben. And I just think that would be a fun. That's my hope. Also, I hope we see Miles Morales from Into the Spider-Verse. I think he could show up too if they want to get real wonky with multiverse stuff. Like, let's just do it. Yep, cartoon. Like, let's get full cartoon Tom Holland and everything. Let's go for it. Like, let's get weird.
All right.
Just as a side, even like a side thing, like one pocket universe. Like, wait, what? I'm animated. That brings back the days of like Jimmy Neutron crossing over with Fairly Odd Parents, like switch universes. That's a weird reference there. Anyways, you got anything else to add about Spider-Man or Marvel?
No. Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just I just think that Marvel has shown what to do to be successful. So for organization, for IP like the DCEU and for Star Wars to not be as successful, I think it's their own arrogance.
100%.
And because it's not like DC has amazing storylines.
Yeah.
Star Wars has amazing storylines. There's no reason they can't build this out. And even I would say like the Snyderverse stuff was actually significantly better, right? Not like I still had my own issues with it, but that's mainly with DC, not necessarily with Zack Snyder. Although I'll also say I'm not the biggest Zack Snyder fan as a director.
There was a lot of slow motion cuts that were not needed. But again, it was his movie.
I enjoyed watching because of the story. I didn't agree with all the director decisions, right? 100%. And that's just like a personal thing. Although I would say neither did Alan Moore, but that's not here nor there. But basically, I'm saying to say that it's totally possible, and I think that's what Snyder showed too. You can have this entertaining stuff. My issue with Snyder 2 is that they were starting basically halfway through the DC kind of universe storyline, right? Instead of kind of starting at the beginning. And I think Marvel did a really good job laying that work. So basically, I say that to say, I hope everybody's able to learn from what Marvel has done and continues to do, because I was really skeptical about how these Disney Plus shows were going to work out. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that they've had. I will say I didn't necessarily think every What If episode was phenomenal. I didn't think that every moment of Falcon and a Winter Soldier was the best TV ever, but I thoroughly enjoyed all those series, right? And it's just been fun to be able to watch and get to know. And I will also say the fact that What If for 95% of these characters are able to get the actual actors to voice them has made a huge difference. I don't want to watch What If Doctor Strange isn't being voiced by Benedict Cumberbatch. Like that was a huge get for them. And to be able to hear Chadwick Boseman, I mean, that Black Panther episode, I guess Star-Lord episode, was like emotional. I guess especially just to see like, wow, this one thing would have like saved the universe. And man, Star Lord is just really kind of a dick.
Yeah. Oh, but then Ego would take over the whole world again, because like he met up with Peter and he was just
That's
a janitor. So you're telling me this janitor wouldn't just totally fall in line with it? Like, so it's like, and that's what I kind of like is like, and then you haven't watched Zombies, never mind. Yeah, I like how, especially how Doctor Strange ends, where he's just in a pocket universe by himself. Like that universe is destroyed and gone. What does that mean? Like,
but
there seems.
Or like I think Doctor Strange is still out there, and like I wonder if that Doctor Strange makes an appearance in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah.
I don't know how, but he's still there and he exists in the multiverse. Granted, it's this small, right?
But it's still in it's still a universe, just its own little small one now. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I do think What If is leading up to something that has a through line through it all, because there's multiple characters that were gonna be reprised, and it's like, how? So we'll see. But I'm interested in if it does tie together and it's good. Like, what a great series, right? What a cool little thing that Marvel's able to do as a TV show. But we'll see. Anyways, I think that's gonna wrap it up. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We're on YouTube. We're on podcast services, all under the West Coast Offensive. We'll be coming at you again, talking sports, talking Marvel. We'll probably talk Star Wars at some point, because it's a mess, but also really good at the same time, but mostly a mess. So, also that anime that's coming out looks really cool. I don't know if you watched that trailer, but watch that. Maybe we'll talk about it next week. Star Wars Visions. Check it out. Looks wild. It's like What If, but it's not canon. Looks really cool. Anyways, we'll catch you next week. See ya.